両方とも故障してたの？
全部故障だ。
ジャグジーも？
全部入れないってだから。
じゃあシャワーだけ浴びてきたわけ？
入れないって全部。
シャワーは浴びてんでしょ？
浴びないよ。全部故障だもんだって。入れないし。
シャワーも？
全部クローズ。
シャワーもそうだったの？
全部故障だって。
ロッカールーム開いたけどシャワー入れなかったの？ロッカールーム開いたでしょ？
全部入れないの、ロッカールームも。
ロッカールーム入れないわけないじゃない。だってロッカールームでみんな着替えるわけだからさ。ロッカールームで着替えるわけだからロッカールームはクローズしてないわけでしょ？ロッカールームクローズしてたの？
とにかく全部クローズだよ。
ロッカールームはクローズしてたの？
いや、してないよ、ロッカールームは。
で、ロッカールーム入れるんだ。で、シャワーは？
全部入れない。
シャワーも入れなかったの？
うん、全部入れない。故障だもん。
で、ロッカールームだけ愛したの？
そ
珍しいね、それは。
う。うん。
法律に違反だよ、それは。24フィットネス。
言った方がいいよ。
違反してるじゃん。それはないと思うけどね、絶対に。シャワー入んなかったの？
入れないもんだって。
そんなわけないと思うけどね、絶対に。じゃあ午前中明日シャワー入ればいいかい？家で入ればいいよ、教会に行く前に。教会？
分かった。
うん。1時に出るから明日。その前に入ればいいよ、お父さん。
16 years at this point.
On and all them problems. She was actually invited into.
Been together since high school. And on paper, I have an amazing husband.
On paper, he's amazing, huh? Well, if he's amazing on paper, what is he like to live with? Well, the answer is it appears that sometimes work conflicts with the peace and the harmony that she wants inside of the home.
He's incredibly supportive, he's kind, he's loyal, he's a great dad, he's very hands-on, he's...
I want to marry the dude. He sounds amazing to me. And yet...
an active participant, he's always present. Like, on paper, what else could I ask for?
Huh, that's a great question.
But in reality, my experience is very similar to the experience of other women. I had this amazing husband who on paper was great, but I was incredibly frustrated and burnt out from our marriage and from motherhood.
As if somehow saying on paper dismisses the reality that this guy appears to be a decent fellow. Perfect, I'm sure not, but just a hard-working guy. If I recall, a blue-collar fellow who was like the Wichita lineman. Hey, that's another Glenn Campbell song, and yet she's feeling burnt out, which I won't even argue with. Being a mother and working, I know the world tells you you can have it all, baby, but I can imagine that she would be totally burned out.
Because what happens to so many of us is that we marry these amazing men, and we have amazing relationships, and then we have kids.
Amazing. 3 times amazing, this guy.
And when we have kids, women tend to carry a disproportionate amount of the work in the home, the work of raising kids, and the mental load. And that is exactly what happened to us.
A mental load, I don't know exactly what that is for sure. And I won't even argue with this woman. But so here's the dilemma for them. She's working, by the way. She has time to get pretty gussied up to make this video. Apparently, she's trying to be a social media influencer, has time for that. So she's got 4 kids, working, trying to be a social media influencer. Something's got to give, I guess. And the answer is, what's going to give? Her response? A husband.
About 3 months after my 4th baby was born, I remember looking at my husband and saying, I need more. I need you to do more. I am exhausted. I am in charge of everyone and everything in this house. Every night when we cook dinner, you ask me what to make.
That's not uncommon. I won't even argue with that. And I'm not saying the guy didn't need to make a course correction. That's not what's motivating this, and it's not moving the marriage towards something better. Her solution to being frazzled was simply a distribution of duties. And honestly, that might have been the simplest way to solve whatever it is that is causing her to be burned out. Maybe it is. The guy just needed to step it up. As you listen to this, you kind of get the sense he was stepping it up, but even so, that wasn't enough either.
Every day when you drop off the kids at daycare, you ask me what they need in their backpacks. I am the project manager of this home and I need you to do more. And he looked at me and he said, okay, just tell me what to do. Right? Every woman has heard this. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
I think, okay, I know I'm a guy, but that's what I would say. I mean, something ain't getting done you want me to do. What do you want me to do? Oh, you're just a typical male.
And I said, okay, something that would make my life easier is if in the mornings when I came downstairs with the 4 kids, because I do mornings by myself, the dishwasher was empty, the dishes were put away, and the trash was taken out. That would make my life so much easier, because when I've got the 4 kids running around and the baby crying, I can't be looking for their favorite water bottle in the dishwasher. I just need to know it's clean. And he said, yeah, of course. What? Yeah, I'll do that. That's no problem. And so, of course, he does it. But then I have to remind him, and then he forgets, and then I have to remind him again. And there was this one morning where I woke up
and decided enough, because he hadn't taken out the trash. Dueling marriages?
Oh, when most people think about marriage, they think about dreams, they think about hopes, they think about expectations and wonderful moments. But most people would not think of, oh, I'm going to be exposed, revealed. Things about me will be pushed to the surface. And oh, this will be an excellent opportunity to grow.
Real! Just play the YouTube video on dueling marriages. One has a view of marriage that says, I need things to be balanced, easy, organized, fair, maybe even perfectly tranquil. The other view says, that ain't what marriage is about. Next on Wretched Radio, on American Family Radio.
Truth. It's meant to travel far. It's meant to reach deep. It's meant to change lives. But for far too long, even the best biblical teaching has faced barriers, paywalls, price tags, limited access. And at Fortis Institute, well, we've been thinking differently recently. What if we could break through all of those barriers? That's why we're launching our Truth Unhindered initiative. We have extraordinary plans for the end of 2025, plans that will transform how pastors and families and seekers access life-changing teaching. But to make this vision a reality, we need you now more than ever. Right now, going on through June 30th, every dollar you give will be doubled up to $250,000. Double the impact, double the reach, double the transformation. Visit fortisinstitute.org/truth today, because when truth breaks through barriers, lives are never the same. fortisinstitute.org/truth.
Perhaps you've been wondering, is there a Christian university that isn't woke? Or that hasn't compromised on important biblical doctrines like, the age of the earth? There is. It's the Masters University in Southern California. Beautiful campus, all of the athletics and activities that you come to expect from universities. But it's more than that. The academic programs are most excellent, preparing students for the future. The Washington Post just said at number 6 for preparing students for the real world. All that, plus the Masters University isn't woke, and it is thoroughly biblical. Would you like to learn more? I encourage you to visit the Masters University at masters.edu/wretched, masters.edu/wretched.
Thanks for listening to Wretched Radio today. You know, $1 today doesn't go near as far as it used to. It might buy you a soft drink, but what if your dollars could multiply? For 25 years, our gospel partners have been watching their giving multiply. Every month, their faithful support transforms into college campus evangelism, biblical counseling, marriage restoration, and gospel proclamation across the globe. And when you become an ongoing monthly gospel partner, understand this. You're not just giving money. You're preaching the gospel to a student at Georgia Tech. You're discipling the young men struggling with pornography. And you're equipping a pastor in a small rural church. And the work, it's nowhere near finished. The fields are white for harvest, and your monthly partnership makes it all possible. Join us as an ongoing monthly gospel partner right now by visiting FortisInstitute.org. That's FortisInstitute.org, because when faithful people give faithfully, the gospel advances powerfully. Wretched, amazing grace, amazing gospel.
Know your church fathers. Justin Martyr was a 2nd century apologist who was converted after seeing the courage and devotion of Christian martyrs. He earned his surname when he was executed for his faith. When asked to renounce his faith, he responded, "No one in their right mind turns from true belief to false belief." This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
If only we had trioing banjos. This is Wretched Radio. Dueling banjos ain't getting the job done. Why? Because you are hearing, I think, 3 threads being woven together in 2 videos that we are comparing and contrasting. One is a TikTok video of a woman who's explaining why 3 years ago she almost divorced her husband of 16 years, who, her words, was an amazing guy. In fact, she used the word amazing like 5 times. On paper, but not in reality. What led her to desire a divorce from this amazing man?
There was this one morning where I woke up and I went to put something in the trash and it was overflowing. And I went to get my son's water bottle and it was in the dishwasher with all the other clean dishes. And I felt so disrespected and unseen and unvalued at that point in time.
Now, what caused the husband to neglect his honey-do list?
I remember texting my husband being like, "What happened? Like, why didn't you do this?" And he said, "Sorry, I was running late for work."
Oh, that's an undervaluing jerk. You mean maybe he had an excuse because he had to get to a job, otherwise you get written up, and then you get 2 more warnings, and then you get fired, and then you can't feed your 4 children? How dare he? Undervalued, under whatever the modern therapeutic language is that she's using. The first thread, I think, it sounds like this is a woman who is very, very typical. That they have been told, and men too, by the way. So I'm not just, if this were a dude, I'd be saying that my wife, she's amazing on paper, she's amazing. In fact, I wonder what it would be like if a guy did a video like this. I'll bet he'd be pilloried on TikTok. My wife is amazing, but she overcooked my omelet. I had felt so undervalued and so disrespected. It would be preposterous. Nevertheless, I think that this woman, like so many people, and I think perhaps it's more Gen Z, millennial, but frankly, it infects all of us because the world screams, you're the center of everything. You're the one that the entire universe revolves around. And she feels now, because her husband didn't do what would make her happy, she's undervalued, disrespected, etc. Now, I think that's one of our threads. That one of the threads is everything has to be perfect for me, because if I'm not happy, then then I've got to get out of this relationship with this toxic person, albeit one who's amazing. on paper. The second thread, I think, that comes from this woman is her understanding of what marriage is supposed to be. She thinks that it is supposed to be
シャワー浴びなかったの？
fires on all cylinders.
いや今日の夜か明日の朝浴びればいいよ。そしたら教会行く前に。
10時頃入るよ。
あ、今日入る？うん。
明日は10時頃行く前に入るから。
What's the third thread? The third thread would be Brad Pigney.
お母さん仕事じゃないかね明日は。
I'm telling you, it is a must listen.
Marriage was designed to expose us and help us grow spiritually to become more like Christ.
Me! Me! Marriage is about me! Jimmy, I don't mean to air this publicly because this is real on paper. She's amazing. And I don't, that would be so helpful. If she could just pull her blankets back over the bed. So in the morning when I lay out my clothes and, throw them on the bed, they don't get put into a pile. And the other morning she didn't do it. I feel so disrespected.
And so in a very real way, marriage is not a stopping point. Too often in our culture, it's all about the wedding. We are moving towards the wedding, and here's the save the date card, and then here's the wedding, and there's the honeymoon, and there's all the preparations, but no one thinks hardly at all about, and when you get home from the honeymoon
Yep.
and unpack, now what? That's
Exactly.
the starting point for real work that is going to be required to become more like Christ. And so let me ask you, Vicki, did this come as a shock to you? What else would you say to the wife out there who is experiencing some shock that I didn't really come into this thinking I was going to be exposed, rattled, shattered, and going to need to grow?
Vicky doesn't always join him, but for this series, why? When marriage feels harder than you think it should be. So transparent, so helpful, so honest, so life-changing. Where do you podcast? Thrive. Brad Pigney.
I think, kind of, she said earlier, I didn't really think I'd have to work at our marriage. I thought it would just be great and I'd be so happy. And when that didn't happen, then we really did have to start working on our marriage. There's a guy in our small group and he has this saying, God, you show me the way and I'll do the work. And he's not kidding about that work part. And it's really true of our marriage because God will show you the way. And once again, as believers, we have to keep coming back to God's blueprint. Thank goodness we have the Bible that does give us instruction, that does give us help. But that has to be our foundation. But it does take work. And to encourage you, the older we've gotten, the longer we've been married, we still get on different pages and we get our wires crossed.
Isn't that refreshing? It can happen. But I was pondering why that happened. You had a long day. You didn't eat very well. You don't have the calorie. You're running low. You're in energy. The traffic was a nightmare, which we can say every day in Atlanta. And just me. Or one of the kids didn't do the me. And so you just feel a little less than full. And then your spouse says or does something, and it's like, those things still happen after you've been married for decades. But if you've been putting in the work, recognizing what marriage is, guess what? You work through those things a whole lot faster.
But to encourage you, it doesn't happen as often and we don't stay in a bad place as long.
Right.
We much more quickly have tools to help us along the way.
What do you think is some of the biggest hindrance or disconnect when you hear marriage and you hear work? Why do you think people are so put off with that? And how do you think perhaps even some people might think, well, if you're in love, it shouldn't be work. It should just be there. That's the whole point. If it's a bunch of work, you didn't marry the right person. What would you say back to someone who's thinking that way?
I'd say that was a great question, Brad. He's basically asking his wife questions. And he's really asking, I think, the question that reflects the mindset of so many people who get married. That this woman, she doesn't pull the blankets back in the morning, whatever it is. He didn't empty the garbage that morning. and you get furious and you blow up. Why? Because your expectation is that it should be perfect. When your expectation is, no, this is going to be an opportunity for me to grow, to become a different human being, then the trajectory of your marriage is set to just a different direction. And over the years, you'll just get better and better and better at dealing with the little things that come up.
Marriage and work, those two words don't go together.
Right. I think in my mind, I thought based on perhaps our culture, my own sinful flesh, just, wow, you marry the right person. You do the hard work of choosing the right person. This is just going to work. It's all going to flow. We're not going to get upset with each other. It's just going to be so glorious. In our culture, it's almost just like, you'll have these feelings. It'll be wonderful. We'll just move on.
So that's some of it right there.
Right.
Would you not agree?
Definitely.
Too often, most people believe that marriage is comprised of being in love, and that is a feeling, and they do not think in terms of feelings having anything to do with work. It's either there or it's not.
お父さん、明日1時に出るから、その前に風呂入ったらいいよ。お父さん。
はい、1時前に入るよ。だから。
うん。
God, you show me the way, and I'll do the work. And he wasn't kidding about that work. And it's true in marriage. God shows us the way in his word, but it is work.
And that is a work that most people don't want to put in, including this young lady. I'm sure she tries in other areas, but when you make a TikTok video expressing how your husband needed to change, and this is where you can fall into a ditch. Sometimes husbands need to change. No, all the time husbands need to change. And so do wives. That's the point. And when you see a failure or an imbalance in your home, you approach it with a different motive. And I think that's what is so glaring about the distinction between this TikTok woman